Welcome back to A Moment in History. I'm Seth Udinsky. In tonight's episode, we journey back to the spring of 1865. The American Civil War had ravaged the United States for 4 long years. Thousands of men and boys had died in this brutal war between brothers, a war to ultimately save the Union and finally end the horrid practice of racial slavery in the nation. And on April 9, 1865, the United States was saved from destruction as the Confederate Army formally surrendered to the Union at Appomattox, Virginia. 1 week earlier, on April 2nd, the Union saw its Anaconda Plan come to fruition, as General Ulysses S. Grant's Army of the Potomac besieged and captured Richmond, the capital city of the Confederate States. Now, you might be asking, what in the world is the Anaconda Plan? Well, the Anaconda Plan was a proposed war strategy first introduced by Union General Winfield Scott at the beginning of the war. For the plan to succeed, it required the Union to cut off the South's supply chains, attack and take over major port cities and major cities in general, and use its vastly superior size and military might to squeeze the life out of the Confederates like a giant snake. Due to the utter incompetence of most Union generals in the first 2 years of the war, the Confederates pushed the Union to the limit until President Abraham Lincoln called on a quiet general from the West to turn the tide of the war. Lincoln turned in desperation to the brilliant General U.S. Grant, who led the Union to great success in the Western theater, and he made him supreme commander of the Union Army. Grant reinstituted the Anaconda Plan, and in less than 2 years, the Union Army strangled the struggling rebels. After the fall of Richmond, Supreme Confederate General Robert E. Lee led his battered and diminished Army of Northern Virginia through the Virginian countryside in a last-ditch race to outrun the Union Army to Lynchburg. If they could reach the railroad of Lynchburg, they could regain supplies and perhaps regroup to continue the war. But the Union Army cut them off at the little hamlet of Appomattox Courthouse in Virginia. On April 9th, Generals Grant and Lee met at the McLean House in Appomattox to negotiate the terms of surrender. General Lee, a brilliant and dashing military leader who did not support slavery but refused to fight against his home state of Virginia, was heartbroken at his impending loss, yet he knew he had no choice. He told his generals the day before the surrender, "There is nothing left for me to do but go and see General Grant, and I would rather die 1,000 deaths." After the terms of surrender were created, the battered and beaten Confederates approached the Union Army to lay down their weapons. In a great act of chivalry and respect, Union General Joshua Chamberlain, a hero from the Battle of Gettysburg, ordered his division to salute their enemies as they surrendered. This act of goodwill between military enemies was a poignant reminder that these men were brothers and fellow countrymen. The Union was saved. It had survived its greatest crisis. We live in a free nation today, a nation that is still divided on many issues, but free nonetheless, thanks to brave men like these who fought to establish freedom for all. Thanks so much for joining me once again for A Moment in History.